It's true. Dynamics, I think, is the right word to use. We've just had a meeting of the ministers of finance of the Eurogroup and the Eurozone recently in Brussels. I came out here, and it is very different, of course, from where you're seated. It's clear that inflation is hitting all of us, but the extent of inflation, the dependence or dependency of Russian oil and gas differs amongst the different countries. But we're not talking yet of a recession. I think we shouldn't talk ourselves into a recession. We need to see which measures we can take, how we can act in a coordinated manner, and also maintain calm. But citizens are affected, and of course the most vulnerable in any society, also in Europe, feel the hit of the current crisis the most.
Even with your own economy, there was no growth from the fourth quarter of last year to the first quarter of this year, 0%. I know the expectations are still that there will be a high single 2.7% number. That's according to ING. Other forecasts are higher. So it looks like you have a little bit of room to work with. At the same time, we keep hearing interest rates are going to go up. What will that do to the economic growth story for the Netherlands for the next couple of months?
It's true. And we've also heard, of course, Christine Lagarde give us a slight heads up. Not yet the timing, but it's clear that interest rates will go up. It's partly, of course, to dampen inflation. What it means is that we will see a different type of activity, but at the same time, the central banks clearly feel the need to act. For the Netherlands, we've come out of a corona crisis like all other countries. We had been looking forward to picking up, and the economy was picking up. We are faced with a shortage, a significant shortage of manpower, of woman power on the labour market. And of course, we're at the start of a season of wage negotiations in the different sectors. What we've done so far is to really dampen the effect of inflation and price rises on the lowest households, the incomes. We've dampened through VAT, we've lowered VAT, excise tax. But of course, the room to maneuver for most governments is relatively limited. But we are keeping an eye on the ball in what is our periodic cycle for August, what we can do to further assist those who are affected the most in purchasing power. The outlook, I think, is one of asymmetry. And we've discussed that as well on a panel led by Kristalina Georgieva. If you look at it globally, if you zoom out, you see further asymmetry. Countries that are already coming out of a crisis or are so food insecure before this particular incident, the crisis, the war in Ukraine and the consequences, that the coping mechanisms we have will vary. So targeted support, targeted interventions are really one big takeaway we all hear.
There's a common theme from the ministers here in Davos across Europe, and that is talking about some sort of coordination between fiscal and monetary policy. But as we talk about monetary policy going up, some sort of normalisation of policy, we're still talking about loosening the fiscal rules, effectively pushing out some of the normalcy that was meant to come back into the system next year, maybe to 2024. That doesn't sound like fiscal and monetary policy moving in the same direction.
That's a good point. Yeah, we've just discussed this, and the European Commission has put forward a proposal to extend by 1 year the sort of loosening of the so-called escape clause. They've done this, I think, within the context of the current crisis, and the unforeseen consequences we yet have to deal with and to assess the extent and the impact and the corollary that will follow from this. The Netherlands, of course, prides itself on on a prudent stance, like all other countries, and we understand the reasons behind the Commission's decision to proposal towards member states. However, we also hear the guidance that the Commission gives alongside, which is even though you're allowed to be more loose with the deficits, there's no reason why you should accrue further debt. Look at the issues of debt sustainability, credible pathways towards debt reduction, and do not use the space unless you really have to, and keep an eye on the ball for the necessary investments and reforms. And this also ties in with a non-paper that Spain and the Netherlands have presented as part of the debate and start of the discussions on the reform of the Stability and Growth Pact, which is really our anchor.
Rules